Well, what's going on, guys? It's 7:22 in the morning, West Coast time. It is the 19th of June, 2025. This is Juneteenth. This be the weaver of John Z. of Roseman, California. Eh? Yeah, that's me. Anyway, upon watching the news of certain companies out there having a conniption fit over their rush jobs, they're blowing things up left and right and creating so much environmental hazard, I'm not quite sure who's worse. Companies who do the toxic spills left and right, or a certain space company that can't, they do rush jobs, and no wonder they're blowing their inventory up left and right, and thus creating more and more environmental hazards left and right. Always nice to have a ship shower its pieces all over an ocean or a neighborhood. Of course, we got that on record. Disrupting flights left and right. But I suppose this is a rush job to get to the moon. You know, there were many companies across the country back in the 60s during the heyday of NASA. John F. Kennedy, I think back in, what was it, 62, 63, or maybe more than that, made a commitment for the United States when they were going toe to toe with Russia. This is all politics, but still, it was something to aspire to. We had many companies contracted, making the ship piece by piece. The industry needed to make this ship piece by piece, or the ships necessary, or the astronauts' uniforms. In the 60s, we got the nation taking government grants left and right and trying to do the best because they wanted to see the country succeed against Russia. And this day is not that day back in the 1960s. We don't have Kennedy or the spirit of Kennedy leading us onwards. No, we got egotistical people, maniacal rich bastards out there, and one rich lunatic out there who's hell bent on getting his ships up there because he wants his reputation solid again. And he's already screwed it up so many times. He's willing to rush safety and quality checks. How else would you keep seeing the ships blowing up or tearing itself apart in the atmosphere or losing control with all the electronics? Yes, I know we need to understand what's going on. And yes, back in the 60s, 50s or 60s, they were still testing things out. But the thing is, they had scientists who were engineers who thought of engineering and that we used. The same engineers who rained holy terror down on people back in the 40s from one country who decided they wanted to take over the world. But those engineers were salvaged, saved, recycled, reused, repurposed. If I want to use those kind of terminology here. But they worked with us regarding space exploration. Werner Braun was one of them. He helped on the V2 project, raining holy hell down on England, but he was salvaged because he still had worth to see that he wanted to see his rockets fly to the moon. And he helped in that. He helped in that. And I give the guy credit. Now we got Musk, who's not exactly a rocket engineer, but he tries to be a rocket engineer. He tries to be a futurist of sorts. Everything takes industry, but it also uses up a hell of a lot of resources. His mad rush of just one company is going to be doing it all. Everything. Everything has to be under quality control and checked. But this. I'm wondering how the other countries are faring in their own abilities to keep ships landed on the moon without blowing up, crashing, or anything else. Because it took human ingenuity, intelligence, quick nerves, and quick study how to land the rockets on the moon. And it took months of training for each mission. Each mission landing on the moon and how it was going to be handled. And we salvaged every ship. We never lost a man in space. They were that careful about quality control, about safety checks, backups upon backups upon backups. So yeah, I got an issue with SpaceX. It's granted that they have a nice taxi service getting the guys up and down from the International Space Station to the moon. If they had studied the new notes from the engineers left behind, they wanted to make a new design ship with new engines that could land. Well, once you get a three-stager going on, their first stage comes back to Earth and lands without any issues. Most of the time, they get it. Once in a while, they're not getting it. Either a software glitch or engineering. It's the only two things that you would have. Unless there was something environmental or something else happening outside of it. But mostly it's human error or machine error. If it's human error, how did it get screwed up? Was there something missed? A lot of quality control checks that they're going to have to do again and again and again. And the FAA, we should have had a National Transportation Safety Board out there. We should have had these guys out there. No, I'm sorry, we lost the inspectors. Why? Because Doge, which was under Musk, was chopping out programs left and right that the country needed to run on and be safe with. And his rush job, and his chemically induced rush job, he managed to screw over our government, and not to mention the same quality checks that could have prevented them from blowing things up. But no, does anybody else think of that shit? Nope, we don't. So, we are in a time of rush jobs. We are in a time of things blowing to hell because we have a ketamine-laced brain working, and not to mention we have a feeble brain working in the White House being controlled and manipulated by the maggots he collected, and now seemingly in control. However, there is one intelligence director of sorts who's not being listened to because she can't be trusted. Because of the shit happening in the Middle East, her sources and her intelligence and taking care of things are not doing so well. So she's being pushed out. She's being aced out because she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. And here, it gets even worse for the White House at this point over here. All those nice directives and orders that the Trump team keeps sending out, including going after law firms that went after his people left and right. So he makes an executive order saying, you do that one more time, I'm going to get you. A 93-page lawsuit filed at every damn agency by the American Bar Association. They got it out there on the internet. 93. It took me a while, but I found it. I had to go from one source to another source. Kept piggybacking each other until I found the link and found it and got it downloaded. Now I've got it. My God. 2 to 3 pages worth of defendants of Trump's era of his errors. It's like watching mobsters getting taken down by a RICO charge. He went after the American Bar Association and other law firms that decided they're going to join up in one massive collective fight. And we're going after the head honcho and every damn head agency who's barring the precedents that we set before. We have the American Bar Association certifying judges to make sure that they understand and utilize the Constitution and the laws and understand how to interpret them correctly. They got set guidelines that has protected us over a century. But the Trump administration is like, no, if I can't control it, then nobody's going to control it. Except for I got to put the brakes on everybody over here because it has to be under my control. Ah! Well, guess what? 93-page lawsuit. Not to mention the history of Trump losing lawsuits mostly. The one major one that affects California is the appeals that's happening right now that we're going to be hopefully getting an answer tomorrow and praying to God that we get the National Guard out of here. But if Trump has its way, we're going to see this bounce from the appellate court to the Supreme Court back to the appellate court again, or just deal with the lower court's ruling. Now, we already had one of the district judges bounced it to the appellate court with the decision saying, no, the Guard is under governor's control, not the president's. The president sent in National Guard to a lot of blue-controlled sanctuary states and cities. Understand, blue versus red. The reds are not getting it. The blues are, because we're sanctuary. Because we had laws passed to protect immigrants coming in and giving them a fair shot going through the system. But apparently, somebody in the White House who's got an absolute burr up his ass since the first administration, and there should be several of these guys, but one of them is a notable part of the executive office. He and his racism has affected everybody. Communities are going up on edge. There's even one community out there in California, in Orange County, that they want to throw out the mayor because the mayor wasn't strong enough or tough enough to say no to the federal government. And the town does not understand. There is never precursor to ICE agents going from town to town, neighborhood to neighborhood, picking up this person, picking up that person, picking up elderly people off of a bus bench. Going after kids. But at least they're stopped by people and personnel saying, no, you can't. We won't allow it. And they're willing to put up their lives and their freedom. And they'll tell them this is against laws. That you can't. Where's the law? You can't do this. So far, we haven't had any kids snatched up yet. But we don't know who is ICE and who is pretenders. Who can get nearly the same equipment. Nearly. But without the markings. And nobody shows ID. Nobody shows a warrant. Nobody shows the legal precedents. Nothing. They just go and snatch and grab, and that's it. And no explanation. They can't, the centers can't, the detention centers. I call them detention centers because to me that's what they are. Adelanto is one of the centers that we've got are stacked and packed right now. And we actually had a group of Congress people going through to do an inspection. One person can get shoved aside, no problem. But when you got a group of them wanting to get through that damn door, They had the power to do this for the oversight. But apparently, the Department of Homeland Security doesn't think so. Border Patrol doesn't think so. They think they're above the law, that they're following a law, and they're not held in accountability. The bitch of it is, law enforcement is held to be accountable to the people they serve. But the federal government's like, no, we're above the law because we're following our law. And they get pissed off, especially when there's confrontation left and right. We're trying to do it the peaceful way of saying, you can't do this. You're not allowed. How big are their centers if the people actually turned against them? And would they be responsible for a bloodbath? It's bad enough when law enforcement out in Los Angeles had to create injuries because they wanted to keep people back. Even when they were from a distance, they kept them back. Taking an occasional pock shot at a reporter, even an international one. And now you've got injuries being reported all over. How many lawsuits can the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles endure? City's already busted, broke, in danger. In danger probably of a federal takeover? Or potential? That's terrifying enough. Trump's administration comes in, takes over the city of Los Angeles. A sanctuary city, no longer. A sanctuary county, no longer. Because Trump is aiming to put his control over everything. Who says he's not a mobster? In the roughshod days of the earliest 20th century, mobsters can go with impunity and shoot people. But it's usually after each other's gangs. But if they got a targeted hit, they would. Unfortunately, they had people caught up in the collateral gunfire. Law enforcement versus the bad guys. Mobsters would pay off. With their racketeering, with their money grubbing, laundering schemes left and right, they amassed a lot of money from a lot of people who had very little power, except to be shaken down. And they would bribe judges. They would bribe cops. They would bribe chiefs. They wanted to keep their control and their empire going. They would have people addicted to gambling and drugs. And still they would do their shakedowns. One tried to be good and evil at the same damn time. Got caught up in a tax scheme. They couldn't get him for racketeering. They got him for tax. Hear that, Capone? The one major good thing he did is he couldn't stand seeing kids suffer through lousy milk, expired milk, that was being sold in the shelves for days and weeks past their own lives. He was hearing reports of it. He made sure through the city and council and then through the state and then it went nationwide of having expired dates on milk bottles. Now once it's past a certain date, that's it. They're done. They're gone. They're dumped. Despite how much inventory. If the people are buying it, they'll get them past the expiration date and they'll use them. But past the expiration date, they're no damn good. And they kept that practice for over a century. This was part of the FDA. But back then, it was part of Chicago. But now, we have an anti-vaxxer who's taken away those kind of options from people. Doesn't want the expirations. He wants to go back prior to 1920 when it comes down for food safety. And there's a lot of doctors and health specialists out there who are pissed. It's no wonder we got a government system that's shaking itself apart because all these little power grabs here and there All these little emperors. And the eldest emperor, who's already senile, he has to fight them off. Was more power hungry assholes. It's no wonder MAGA is having a conniption fit. Oh, yeah, they're having conniption fits. When you see two guys, a senator and a mouthpiece, going after each other over population, over Iran, and who has knowledge of which. We had an ineffectual Congress that can't even get off its dead ass to get things done. Oh, they make the usual platitudes and placebos to people they feed. Justice, justice, justice. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be glorious. See, I'm a follower of God. I'm a follower of Christ, and I'm telling you, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be glorious. And every time I keep seeing this leader or the Speaker of the House, I want to throw up. Because he's already spewing off a hell of a lot of placebos to people to take. Or maybe narcotics out of his mouth. Yeah, his material is pretty damn vile and pretty damn disgusting. And he tries to placate people on news programs left and right. But you know, he's a snake oil salesman like every other person. He's out there for the money. He's willing to say, lie, cheat, and steal for it. That's not accusations. That's actions being taken place in Congress. He's lying, he's cheating, he's stealing from the people. Hope. He's trying to feed them false hope while they're getting stomach aches. Oh yeah, it's a hell of a lot to unload this morning for Juneteenth. This is supposed to be the day when we're supposed to be knocking down history of the end of slavery. And yet we have a national park out there who have been told by the executive branch months ago that they have to take away all the negative remarks and keep all the positive stuff. Our country is filled of dark stuff because these are the reality things that happen that still makes our country moral, or try to be anyway. But we're taking that out, aren't we? Yeah, we're going to lie to the national parks and tell them that this thing happened instead of this true thing happened over here. When you have a certain dock area during World War II being mishandled, live munitions blew up and killed people in the process, where other dock workers saying, no, we're going to be subject to a lot of punishment, but we're not going to be handling these live munitions in this unsafe way. And we're black. But it's not being black. It's being racially profiled and saying that these guys are subhuman. And everything exploded is their fault. It's not us, the whites. If I look at it that particular point of view. But it was still still mismanagement of the munitions. And there was lawsuits. But finally, the guys who put up the lawsuits, the plaintiffs, the ones who were threatened, lives were threatened, freedom is threatened, they won. They won. And yet that history is going to be revised and rewritten because it's not accurate. Or even the Confederate monuments being put up left and right saying that these guys were the greatest generals or leaders, and yet they didn't. They weren't. When you had several states going against a group of other states over slavery, right to exist, right to control, we're part of a union, not separate states. Varied reasons for a civil war to happen. It took out a lot of the population of our country. And it's still rebuilding itself to this day. Slavery is abolished. The mentality hasn't. Nor has the deepened disgust Every generation has it. Still continues to this day. Why do you think we have the racists and white supremacists controlling our offices right now, including the ones we voted into office and spread out like maggots? Even the ones in Congress are still having issues with themselves and splitting apart a party that they thought was going to endure. I don't think so. I don't think so. So yeah, that's what's been happening. I've already covered concerning about an ego bruised so damn badly he's punishing the country for it because he couldn't get his birthday wish. Everybody falling in love with this one particular person's birthday. That he had to threaten the United States Army, buy, cajole, lie, steal, whatever he could to get the U.S. Army out to celebrate. The Army said he was going to celebrate a 250th anniversary, but the president was going to hijack it all. He didn't have much of a turnout, and yet everybody else who had a problem with the old gas bag, they turned out in droves. They turned out in droves. But then was lied about. It's not saying the president was bad. His decisions he made were beyond bad. Threatening people's lives, freedom, civil rights thrown out, Constitution thrown out because of ego. Because of ego. This is the reality. This is reality happening right now. This is the thing that's happening in our time period. And if we can't keep it in front of us and just not dealing with it, I mean, if we're just not going to deal with it and just pretend it's going to be normalized and we have to get used to it, imagine your freedom tossed. You're sitting down somewhere, you're resting. Oops, I'm sorry, here comes a van coming up. Armed thugs with masks on, body armor, automatic weapons pointing them at you, and just grabbing you, throwing you in the van, and disappearing you. You think this is a joke? I got my town that I live in think it's a joke. I'm terrified that it's going to happen here. I'm terrified that we're going to get reports from the school that the kids are going to disappear, or that people have already disappeared off the streets because of these damn vans. It was bad enough we had in the town's Central Valley of California get nailed. That businesses were threatened, not to mention agricultural communities threatened, money being threatened. Think about it, guys. And start chewing on your fingernails. We're not out of the woods yet, and that being said,